Welcome to Uncovered Biblical History and Traditions, the channel dedicated to lost stories of the biblical past. Discover stories of pre-Christian historical roots, biblical legends, lost church history, and forgotten historical characters of faith. It is very helpful if you hit the like, subscribe, and share. Help build my channel, and let's take a look together into these uncovered forgotten tales. Picture this: the year is 62 AD, and the streets of ancient Britain are literally running red with Roman blood. For over a decade, the mighty Roman Empire, the same force that conquered Gaul and dominated the Mediterranean, has been systematically humiliated by a single Welsh chieftain. This is the story of Arviragus, the man who turned Britain into Rome's worst nightmare, and how a financial conspiracy involving history's wealthiest philosopher triggered one of the most savage uprisings the ancient world had ever seen. The story begins in 52 AD with what should have been Rome's moment of triumph. Caractacus, the legendary British resistance leader, had been defeated at Clun and dragged off to Rome in chains. The Romans believed they had broken British resistance. They were catastrophically wrong. From the ashes emerged Arviragus, a figure far more dangerous than his predecessor. This wasn't just another tribal chieftain, he was a military genius who understood something crucial: you don't beat Rome by playing by Roman rules. While Caractacus relied on conventional tactics, Arviragus revolutionized British resistance with unprecedented ferocity. He rapidly reorganized the shattered Silurian forces, but this time with a crucial difference. Where previous campaigns showed restraint, Arviragus unleashed a fury that exceeded anything Romans had encountered in centuries of conquest. The transformation was immediate and terrifying. Roman soldiers who had marched confidently through Gaul suddenly faced an enemy that fought with savage intensity that defied comprehension. These weren't just military defeats, they were psychological warfare campaigns designed to break the Roman spirit entirely. What followed was spectacular Roman military failure. Ostorius Scapula, the Roman commander in Britain, watched his forces become progressively demoralized as Arviragus's tactics proved devastatingly effective. In 53 AD, Scapula suffered catastrophic defeat at Kievan, near Kalian. This wasn't just a tactical setback, it was complete humiliation that shattered Roman confidence. The defeat was so crushing that Scapula, broken in health and spirit, begged Emperor Nero to relieve him of command. Nero immediately agreed. Enter Aulus Didius Gallus, who arrived with fresh optimism and founded Cardiff as a symbol of renewed Roman authority. But Didius proved no match for Arviragus either. His performance was so dismal that he achieved rapid, consecutive defeats that left Romans wondering if they had fundamentally misunderstood their enemy. The situation became so desperate that Rome replaced Didius with Veranius in 57 AD. If anything, Veranius performed even worse. Arviragus actually drove Roman forces behind their own defensive walls and trapped Veranius at Verulam. The hunter had become the hunted. By this point, the situation was a full-blown crisis. 3 consecutive commanders had failed spectacularly against a single British chieftain. Emperor Nero decided to deploy Rome's nuclear option. Suetonius Paulinus, regarded as the finest military tactician in the Roman Empire, was dispatched with Rome's most elite forces. This wasn't just any army. Nero sent the 2nd Augusta Legion, along with the famous 9th, 14th, and 20th legions. The 20th carried the prestigious Vicesima, Valens, Victrix designation, symbols of Roman military excellence. The message was clear: Rome was bringing everything to crush this uprising. The political stakes couldn't have been higher. If these elite forces failed, it would represent the most humiliating defeat in Roman history. They failed. Even Rome's finest legions proved inadequate against Arviragus's revolutionary tactics. The British forces continued their relentless offensive, asking no quarter and giving none. Roman military doctrine, refined through centuries of successful conquest, simply couldn't adapt. Roman historian Tacitus captured the frustration. In Britain, after the captivity of Caradoc, the Romans were repeatedly defeated and put to rout by the single state of the Silures alone. The mighty Roman Empire, at its height, repeatedly defeated by a single Welsh tribe. But the most dramatic chapter wasn't being written on battlefields, it was orchestrated by history's most unlikely villain, Seneca, the famous Stoic philosopher. Seneca, celebrated as one of Rome's greatest intellectuals and advisor to Nero, was also the empire's wealthiest man. His fortune came from sophisticated financial exploitation, specializing in usurious lending to wealthy individuals in politically vulnerable positions. His latest target was Prasutagus, the incredibly wealthy Iceni king. Seneca had advanced $10 million to Prasutagus, using Iceni public buildings as security. This was a private commercial transaction that should have been resolved through normal legal channels. But when Prasutagus died in 60 AD, Seneca saw opportunity for something more profitable than debt collection. He conspired with Catus Decianus, the avaricious Roman prefect, to manufacture false pretext for violating the Claudian treaty protecting Iceni rights. What happened next represents one of history's most cynical betrayals. Decianus, exploiting peace treaties allowing Romans freedom of travel in Iceni territory, positioned forces under diplomatic pretense. The Iceni, trusting Roman legal protections, welcomed the Roman presence. Then Decianus struck with stunning treachery. His forces launched surprise attack on unsuspecting Iceni, beginning systematic plunder that violated every principle of Roman law. They sacked royal palaces, stripped nobles of estates, and confiscated wealth explicitly protected under treaty guarantees. But worse was coming. In calculated humiliation designed to break British morale, Roman soldiers committed atrocities that shocked their own historians. Queen Boadicea, Prasutagus's widow, was publicly whipped. Her 2 daughters were publicly raped. These weren't random violence, they were deliberate political terrorism demonstrating Roman power and British helplessness. Frustrated by military failures, Suetonius Paulinus escalated to levels that horrified the ancient world, implementing scorched earth policy targeting British culture and religion. The culminating horror was the Menai massacre, representing fundamental abandonment of Roman legal and moral principles. Roman forces approached the Christian learning center under false peace pretenses. The inhabitants, trusting diplomatic protocols, welcomed what they believed were peace envoys. Instead, they encountered concealed weapons and calculated murder. Thousands of priests, priestesses, and civilians were butchered in cold blood. The massacre was deliberately comprehensive: men, women, children, elderly, and infants killed without discrimination. This wasn't military action, it was state terrorism designed to eliminate British intellectual and spiritual leadership. The massacre achieved exactly the opposite effect. Rather than breaking resistance, it transformed the conflict into something far more dangerous, a holy war with no possibility of compromise. The combined impact of Iceni betrayal and Menai massacre created what Roman writers described as an avalanche of British reaction. The anger swept across the entire island, with the frenzy of a vendetta. What emerged was something Romans had never encountered: total national mobilization. Men, women, and priests abandoned traditional roles to participate in what became a war of survival. This wasn't just military resistance, it was complete cultural rejection of Roman civilization. The British response was so overwhelming it stunned Roman leadership. Tacitus documents that Roman generals and soldiers were stunned by the uprising's scale and intensity. For the first time in generations, Roman forces found themselves completely defensive, confined within fortified encampments, afraid to venture into British countryside. The transformation was complete and devastating. Plains and streets that once symbolized Roman order now ran with Roman blood. British forces systematically destroyed Roman settlements, stormed supposedly impregnable fortifications, and eliminated Roman presence from vast territory. The psychological impact on Roman forces was perhaps more significant than military defeats. Roman soldiers, trained to believe in inherent superiority over barbarian peoples, suddenly faced opponents who not only matched their military capabilities but exceeded them in motivation and tactical innovation. Romans discovered what imperial powers throughout history would learn: military technology and numerical superiority mean nothing when facing a population united by shared outrage and survival instinct. The same legions that conquered most of the known world were reduced to cowering behind defensive walls, afraid to engage an enemy transformed from conquered subjects into an unstoppable force of national liberation. The Arviragus rebellion represents one of history's most dramatic examples of successful resistance to imperial power. For over a decade, a single British leader systematically dismantled Roman confidence, military effectiveness, and political credibility. He turned what should have been routine imperial conquest into a nightmare that consumed Rome's finest resources and exposed fundamental limitations of imperial strategy. If you would like full context of this story, watch my previous videos and future videos. If you would like more information where to research this subject, pause this image and look into these resources. If you have book sources or links of your own on this subject, please share in comments or email me. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this forgotten biblical story. Leave a like, comment, share and subscribe. This is very helpful. Join me next time for another lost story of our biblical history. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe for more great content. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.